He boarded the flight like any other passenger. Calm, professional, just another business trip for a man who had worked his whole life to reach the top. But somewhere at 30,000 feet, everything changed. A single misunderstanding, fueled by prejudice, turned an ordinary flight into a nightmare. Within minutes, cameras were recording, passengers were whispering, and the world was about to witness a scandal that would shake an entire airline. What happened on that plane? And why did it spiral so fast? Stay until the end, because this story is one you'll never forget. Marcus Reed wasn't just any passenger that day. He was a self-made CEO, a man who had built his company from the ground up after years of sleepless nights and relentless work. At 42, he carried himself with quiet confidence, dressed in a sharp navy suit, his gold wedding band catching the cabin light as he settled into his first-class seat. To the other travelers, he looked like success, calm, composed, and ready for another business trip that would take him closer to closing a life-changing deal. But beneath the calm hum of the engines, tension simmered. A glance that lingered too long. A flight attendant whose polite smile didn't quite reach her eyes. Marcus didn't notice at first, not the hushed whispers, not the subtle stares. He was focused on reviewing his presentation, unaware that within minutes, every eye in that cabin would be locked on him, and not for the reasons he deserved. At first, it was subtle. A drink served to the man beside him with a warm smile, but when Marcus asked for water, the attendant's tone was clipped, cold. He brushed it off. Maybe she was having a bad day. Maybe he was overthinking. But then came the second glance, the quiet murmur between two flight attendants just a few feet away, and the unmistakable feeling that he was being watched. By the time the plane leveled at cruising altitude, the whispers had turned into stares. Marcus adjusted his tie, trying to focus on his laptop, but every movement seemed to draw more attention. A passenger 2 rows back whispered into their phone, eyes locked on him, like he was some kind of threat. And then, it happened. A sudden shadow loomed over him. The flight attendant, tall, rigid, her eyes sharp, stopped at his seat. Her voice carried through the cabin, sharp enough to slice through the hum of the engines. "Sir, we've had reports. You're making passengers uncomfortable." Marcus froze. Confused, stunned, his voice barely found its way out. I'm just working." But the tone in her voice wasn't questioning. It was accusing. As if he didn't belong there. The air thickened. Passengers shifted in their seats, some avoiding his gaze, others pulling out phones, ready to record what they thought would be a scene. He tried to stay calm, his heartbeat hammering against his ribs. He explained who he was, a CEO on his way to secure a major deal, but his words didn't matter. To her, to the passengers already whispering, none of it mattered. They didn't see success. They didn't see a man who had fought his way to the top. They saw only the color of his skin. And then, the unthinkable. She leaned closer, her voice sharp, her patience thin. "Stand up." "No." Marcus hesitated. That single pause, that heartbeat of disbelief, was enough to ignite her fury. The next moment, it happened fast. Too fast. The sting of a hand striking his face cracked through the cabin. Gasps erupted. Phones shot into the air, capturing every second. Marcus sat frozen, his mind reeling, the taste of metal and humiliation filling his mouth as the world around him tilted. The pilot's voice crackled over the intercom, tense and clipped, but Marcus barely heard it over the pounding in his ears. He wasn't just a passenger anymore. He was a headline in the making. And somewhere, deep in his chest, a sinking realization began to form. This wasn't just a misunderstanding. This was something far worse. The cabin was chaos now. Voices clashed in the narrow aisle, some shouting for calm, others demanding Marcus be restrained. The cameras stayed trained on him, capturing every flicker of fear, every ounce of humiliation etched into his face. Security, 2 off-duty air marshals seated just rows away, rushed forward, their hands on his shoulders before he could even process what was happening. "Sir, you need to come with us." "No." His protests were swallowed by the noise. He tried to explain, again, that he hadn't done anything, that he was just trying to get to his meeting, to get home to his family. But reason didn't matter. In that moment, his success, his status, his humanity, none of it mattered. The sting of the slap still burned on his cheek, but what cut deeper was the way they looked at him. As if he wasn't a man, just a problem that needed to be removed. Passengers stared, some horrified, some frozen, some silently recording history. A little girl clutched her mother's sleeve, whispering, "Why are they hurting him?" But the mother said nothing. Dragged down the aisle, every step felt like a walk through fire. His heart pounded, his hands trembled, but he refused to let them see him break. He lifted his chin, even as his knees weakened, even as humiliation crashed over him in waves. Somewhere behind him, a passenger's voice cut through the chaos. "This is wrong. He didn't do anything." But it was too late. The cabin door loomed closer. The world outside, and the world watching through a dozen phone screens, was about to decide his fate. And in that frozen moment, as flashbulbs blinked and his name began to trend online, Marcus realized the truth. This wasn't just his fight anymore. This was the moment the world would see, or choose to look away. Marcus never made it to that meeting. By the time the plane landed, the video was everywhere. Millions of views, hashtags demanding justice, headlines that turned his nightmare into a spectacle. The airline released a statement within hours, cold and calculated, calling it a misunderstanding. But Marcus knew better. Everyone did. In the days that followed, he became a symbol, not by choice, but by necessity. His face on the news, his name in the streets, protests rising like waves against an industry built on silence and denial. But with every interview, every speech, the same question haunted him. Why did it take a public humiliation, a viral video, for the world to believe what so many live every single day? He still remembers that moment on the plane, the sting, the silence, the shame. It never truly leaves you. And yet, through the pain, there's something more, a spark, a determination that what happened to him will not be forgotten. Because this isn't just Marcus's story. It's a story that repeats itself, in airports, in boardrooms, in neighborhoods across the world. The question is, how many more times will it happen before we finally say enough?